I'm Tom O'Neill with Gold Derby. Meet the cast of Bates Motel. Let's start with Freddie first. Freddie Highmore. We have seat assignments. Freddie here on the end. Vera Farmiga as Norma. And Nestor Carbonell as Alex Romero. So we knew that Norma had to die. We knew from the movie Psycho, if you've seen it, and you knew that the setup was here, and so it finally had to happen. But my first question is to you guys, did Norma have to kill her? Is Oscar Wilde right that each man must kill the thing he loves? Who wants to answer that?
Well,
she could have
I think
been in a car
wants
accident, and Norman could have just gone secretly and stole the body and stuffed her upstairs like we see in the movie, or she could have killed herself. The love relationship.
I'd like to see Choose Your Own Adventure. I actually think they're in the writing room right now, and I think it would be very interesting to have several scenarios. Like why not? What if Norma killed Norman and then took on his personality?
I like that.
And pretended I look great in a beard, even though Norman is clean shaven. Whoops.
Yeah. With your MSQ, what's it called?
I would love to see what happens if Norma just got just fed up with all this drama and just rode off into the night with. Mr.
She should have actually.
Much better
this
choice.
wouldn't have happened here,
I'm really not sure she should have.
Really? Okay, tell us why.
Because I think that's the point. That's what Norman gets, and I think but Norman's right. We have this sort of vaguely, I guess it's a half-jokey rivalry between the two of us as to
No joke, but
as to who Norma should have, ended up being with. But I feel like Norman and Norma have to be together in order for both of them to feel complete and happy. And I think he's not that, Romero has the best intentions, but I do feel that he's somewhat culpable for what happens.
You are under arrest, says the sheriff.
someone really believes
Just
their
spice
history.
up the
No, it's interesting because we spoke with Carrie and Carlton. I know Vera and I did about this very episode and the end of it, and the writing of the letter, and sort of the nuance of how much is she really, committing herself to Norman, and how much is she really, regretting this decision she's about to make, and really it's that beautiful scene that you guys have in the bed, and the tone of that what we, you and I talked about. Are you
The moving to Hawaii thought.
moving to Hawaii? It was a beautiful scene.
I meant Hawaii. It wasn't code for anything.
Norman isn't the bad guy. Honestly, Norman is.
I was talking to Freddie the other night. Wait a minute.
It's a real
minute.
tragedy.
I was talking to Freddie the other night. He goes, Norman's not a bad guy. If he was, when he picked up that axe, he would have killed Alex. But he didn't. He held back, right? You really believe this, that Norman is not a bad guy?
I do. I think I do.
He's
I think
a
most
serial
people agree
killer.
with me. I'm not sure whether this is a joke that Norman isn't good or he
No,
is. He's
misunderstood. No, but his brain is misunderstood. He has a different neurology. Seriously, he does. It's not firing on all cylinders. He has neurotransmitters that don't often connect in the right ways. And
Talking about
that's
Norman?
why-
No, certainly he's deluded. I guess what I mean is that it's an act of love. The last thing that he does at the end of 9. It isn't out of. It's what he genuinely feels is the best thing to do. It's not out of jealousy, I don't feel, in terms of wanting to get his mother back from Romero. I think he really feels that they will be happiest in moving on to whatever that new life will be together. I don't think it's.
And I do think it's a misunderstanding.
Yes,
I think he
yeah,
misunderstands my plea, that yearning for Hawaii. I think they are trying to find, Yeah,
And that's why it's a tragedy. It's not. It's an act of love. It's a romance, and Norman kind of gets that. I think in 8, at the end of it, when he says, that huge speech in the dining room before he storms out and then ends up with the axe in front of Romero. He says, don't you see that we kind of have to be together? And that's the sad truth behind it all, I feel, is that they need each other to feel complete. And I feel like Norman does have a good, which is why he's been able to be more manipulative with people this season too, is that he understands humans very well. He's not, just feel like I have to defend him.
Yeah, I'm just teasing.
But he does understand the human interaction on a deeper level than other people. And in a way, he's right when he says they have to be, it's the horrible foreboding nature of Bates Motel that that's going to happen.
Nestor, why does Alex save Norman?
Norman? It's a great question.
Were you crazy? No.
Well, I think I don't know that he saves him so much as he certainly tends to Norma first, absolutely, and he's not going to shed tears over Norman if he dies necessarily. Only if Norma were to survive, and obviously her son doesn't. But no, I think he does it because I actually think he does have a conscience, and he realizes also that he is so dear to her heart as well, and he can't just leave him in that room. So he would try, but absolutely his heart is where Norma is. But no, I think look, you make a very good case for Norman. I think you're, but I think the point you make about him being manipulative. I think this season you're absolutely right. He's aware of his own Machiavellian qualities, so I think he's less innocent. In the end, I think it's really a manipulation. I think you were wanting her the only way you can secure her in another world.
You see, I'm not sure that the last thing is, I agree, certainly more manipulative. I just don't know whether it's manipulative when he goes into the room, into the bedroom at the end. I don't think he has this sort of ulterior motive. I feel like he gets lost in the moment and is genuinely...
That was planned.
It's planned, but
semantics.
But I feel like it's... I guess I feel like it's genuine. He's not...
It's genuinely planned, yes. Yeah, you should be a lawyer, man. I'm telling you.
Let me ask you, we have an actors group here. Let me ask you the actors question, and that is, what is the hardest thing to do in your role? And Freddie, when you and I talked about this yesterday, you gave me a surprising answer. I thought the answer would be, you have two great crying scenes this year. You have the crying scene in the hospital where you say to the doctor, "Let me go home." And it's acting through the tears. It's not like directors cutting to your tears after you guys do your lines. And the other one is in the very, very final episode here. After this episode here. But your answer was not that. Your answer was the transition between Norman and Norma. Why is that the hardest?
I guess the crying, it's always funny describing them as like crying scenes too. Yeah. Or like the emotional scenes, as if like no other scene has a... I feel like those ones are more, I don't know, I just don't find them as tricky. And they're so powerful, like Nestor's moment at the end of this episode was so powerful and heartfelt, and it takes a certain, like quality and to like bring that out, and it's so meaningful. But I guess for me, those transitional moments and Norman that are harder because you don't necessarily understand them in your real life, that you don't have something to connect to I'm changing from this person into that person. And I think it's making those moments believable and understandable as opposed to just kind of this flash of like Norman and then the next moment he's Norma. And you want to see how that happens. Like in the 5th episode where he's up against the wall and he's breathing and the sort of camera pushes in behind. And I think you need those moments of breath that Kerry and Carlton in the editing have been so great to keep this year, as opposed to rushing it and sort of compressing what needs some time, because it's got to be grounded in a believability that people can latch onto and feel is real, as opposed to, he's just pulling a face and becoming Norma now. You want to believe that it's actually happening and see how that takes place.
Vera, what's your answer?
The most difficult,
In other words, I would guess in your case that the most difficult thing would be, let me pick a scene where the three of you are in the basement, all three of you. And I think it's the one time where I think Norma really believes her son that your life was in danger. And at that moment, you come in right then and there and rescue the two of them. Norma is pinning Norma down and saying, "Mother, you." I forgot what the story twist, but I mean that was a good case of where this woman is juggling, the fear of her son. She's juggling the love, and she's thinking, "Oh my God, he's crazy. He's a killer. I know it, and now I might die." And you have to juggle all of that.
And I think, yeah, tapping into that fear as a parent, I think, and I think this is sure. She's been afraid several times to that degree, where she squashes that fear and takes on that maternal prowess that you need to say, I can still fix him, even though he may kill me in the next second. I still have a second to get there to change his mind, and I think that's what's so, her perseverance always, that maternal perseverance, like her ode, that she sings is always, I can heal him. I bore him. Somewhere within my DNA is the answer I need to be able to make him better and to fix him. And I think that's what I always focus on. But I've been emoting for the past 4 years, like Clytemnestra on acid with Norma Bates. And actually one of the most challenging thing, funnily enough, because in episode 10, for those of you who haven't seen it, I get to really sort of delve deep into rigor mortis. And it's actually very difficult to be still as an actor.
I asked Vera on the way in here, can we talk about the scene there where Freddie glues her eyelids open? That had to be, as an actress, how do you endure that? You can't.
Well, it's both. There's no glue in that actual.
Okay,
It was water.
We didn't
It's
actually
water.
super glue
We
Vera's
did,
eyes.
Yeah, we did it.
She's dead on the couch, and he's dug
was
her up, and he's
something benign
trying to
like-
keep Mommy alive.
Yeah, and he's just desperate to look into her eyes to look into her eyes. At that point, he still doesn't. He's milliseconds from really acknowledging the fact that she's dead for sure, and but that was a benign concoction of like holy water or something. And he just, and so it was just me keeping my eyes open.
In terms of a scene, I was remembering just when you were saying with the eyes open and the whole journey through the house and keeping that sort of emotional journey right. I think that's tricky, when it's effectively one scene and it's split up into various different parts when you film it. Like when you had that amazing scene with Max, and it's all one scene, but when you shoot it, you're going from the set of like the ground floor, and then you have to move over after lunch and do the second, and keeping the emotional arc of all of that.
Yes,
I mean,
that's tricky because there's different
amazing
locations. We shoot the interior of the house in a soundstage in one part of Vancouver, and we go out to the countryside an hour and a half away on a different day a week later, and and keeping the emotional continuity of something in check can be challenging on the show.
Nestor, what's your answer to this?
I think those are great answers. For me, certainly in this episode, it was just a matter of pacing on the scene where I rescue Norma, or try to rescue Norma. And then just talking to the director and just saying, hey, listen, what kind of coverage do you envision here so I can pace myself when I break down? And then sort of just asking for a little bit of time from the AD or just a heads up, so, and then just knowing exactly where you're going to hit. And also, often there's a technical glitch or something like that. What do you
I know, and asking for complete stillness for me, because I have ruined some of his ace takes because I was sitting there trying to, and he's bawling, and his tears are like popping out and falling into my eye, and I'm trying not to move, but when these buxom tears from some anyway.
I mean, the pacing of it too, and also just a scene like that, you don't want to play the end first. So, and there's a lot in that particular scene because we had some physical stuff, getting the bodies out, and
a heavy guy to drag along.
Okay.
Easy there, buddy.
Now, Nestor, you're talking about the director. You actually were the director once, and Freddie wrote an episode here, and Freddie's in the writing room now and is going into the next season. So you've taken on both of these other roles. I want you to talk about these things.
It's been a gift. I mean, just
Do these guys will obey you when you give them more?
No, they don't. No, I had the AD deal with them.
Okay.
And we had the best ADs.
You just sit in you direct from the trailer.
Exactly.
Mostly,
I don't talk to them. Pete White talked to them. No, that came really from Vera. I mean, it was your idea that I think you brought it up after season 1 or something. You said you should direct. I don't know how you got that idea because I never I'd really never thought of it until Vera brought it up.
We talk all the time about the anatomy of a scene, and he just has a way with words that I knew was going to be very
kind.
appealing
Anyway.
for me as an actress to I love his enlightenment as an actor in our discussions about scenes, and I knew it.
Well, thanks, but it was, we would talk about scene work and stuff like that, or just just objectives, and and we block it out often ourselves. So that came up, and Vera's like, "You should direct." I said, "Well, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't know the first thing about camera." But then I broached the subject with Carlton, and he said, "Yeah, I think it'd be great." So it progressed to me shadowing, and then Carlton said, "If somebody drops out, would you be willing to step up?" And I said, "Sure." And I was just dying inside because someone did drop out, and then I had to do it. But thankfully, I mean, these guys are amazing, and so is our crew, and our incredible, our whole cast is. So the support I got was phenomenal. No, but working with them. Wasn't it weird the first day when I had to direct you though? It was
weird when you're in the sheriff's uniform. And you're like, hey, with like the big buckle out, and it's like
strutting my stuff. No, but wasn't it strange? Like our first scene that I had to direct you, I was like, all right, let's read it for us. I was like, wasn't it?
Now, Freddie, you were actually a writer on this.
Briefly,
Okay.
sorry. I think that Nestor also just gets it on such a nuanced level, which is what makes him so brilliant as a director. That and you can see it in the performance too. In Romero's, like the slight subtleties that he's always digging out and finding, and he brings that to directing too, of like incredibly specific notes, which is so useful. And someone who knows the show and the characters so well, who is able to pinpoint particular moments and try things slightly differently and give something incredibly specific, and it's been great.
Oh, thanks, man. And as actors, I'm sure you guys all relate. That's the only way I could approach directing. It's the only way I knew how was through the prism of an actor, and then learn camera, obviously from everyone around me. But I mean, these guys are you guys are trained and incredible actors, so it's so easy to talk to an actor in that way. It's just great.
Freddie, you took on a writing credit this season, but you actually partially wrote this episode that they just saw, correct or no? This is number 9, right?
No.
Okay. What was the
8th one?
8th one.
I mean, I guess the collaborative nature of a writer's room means that all of the writers, when it says like, oh, this one's written by Freddie Highmore, it's sort of, there's a certain cheekiness to it, as there is with everyone's episode that's written by them, because it's a truly collaborative affair. You have the writer's room that goes on for months, and every single writer has an input on every single episode, and so you go off and write your one, but you have very much your brief and the beats carved out, which is what makes it exciting, I think, working in television as a writer, that collaborative nature. It's not like pass the parcel, like, here's episode 1, just carry on and see what happens, which would be an interesting way to write a show. But I guess for me, it came out of a desire to want to be involved in the wider process, and just finding it a little odd to put so much into a season and then go off, back to England for a few months and then be like, oh, I see what you've done with the show, let's carry on. I wanted to be involved throughout, and have, I was lucky to have Kerry and Carlton who supported me in that.
When I was asking Freddie yesterday about the final season and his idea as a writer going into the final season, he was focusing on how your character, and I'm not sure anybody has the answer yet, but how are you going to? We know from the movie that Norma is a great ghost. We hear her voice. We see from the very final scene of the very final episode, she's there, at least in his head. They're playing the piano. They're having it's happily ever after as far as his demented serial killer mind is. So we know you're going to be there, and you're going to be there, but different this time because it's not our Norma, it's his Norma.
I don't know what to expect. I know it's going to be different variations on the Norma theme. I think his psyche is fractured, and so you have all these splintered visions of her, and they know how to write for me. I think it's going to be plenty of gymnastics. Yeah, I do. I'm excited. I don't know though. I know for a fact there will not be a resurrection. She's not coming back from the dead.
I thought that's what you were pitching earlier, that you actually had killed me.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't pitching any one ending. I think it would be funny for fans to be able to be like, this is what I want to happen. Let's see that rendition of Bates Motel.
Okay, we have questions from the audience. They've given me your questions on cards. So from Roxanne Beck, we have the question, what was your most difficult scene from each of you guys this year, the most difficult one to do? Who wants to start?
No.
At a technical level, I had to direct our lovemaking scene. That was tricky. There's that. Next.
I guess Vera's yours with the teardrops in the eye or something.
Mine was a 6-paragraph monologue, a summation of my sordid history. And the whole thing with Norma has been, I think in order to achieve, she's had a very painful past, and what she's wanted to achieve this entire journey is happiness and peace, and that would come about by truth telling. And for her, there's 2 ways to go wrong with truth telling. You either don't start or you don't finish entirely. You don't complete that journey. And I always wonder, what would happen if that decision hadn't been made on Norman's part with the thing? If, I think she's come so far this year in enlightenment and the great beauty and grace that he's been a catalyst, he's been the sage that has shown up in her life and encouraged it with forgiveness and love. Say, I'm still here for you. Just say the words, tell the truth. And I feel like, I feel like in many ways Norma just needed a good rest, and maybe the next day she would have, anyway. But I think for me, there was a monologue, it was like 4 pages of, and it's difficult because it's exposition. And you have to ride the emotion, and the audience already knows what happened, so they're not learning anything new. But this character is. And so that was very tricky to navigate and take after take after take too, because I tend to expire quickly, and it's very challenging. I think I do.
She was brilliant. I was the recipient of that, and you were just, you made exposition. Vera can read a phone book and it's entertaining, and that was stuff you had obviously lived through as a character for years, but wasn't privy to that information. But you made that so honest and alive that it was, that was like an acting exercise. It was incredible.
Thank you.
Freddie, what's your answer?
I guess there was something tricky in the 10th episode because it's new and fresh. There's the novelty to adjusting to life post Norma and keeping the humor there in an episode that it would be dull if it were just like Norman crying the entire episode, or having you didn't want it to be one note and finding the differences in every single scene. And obviously so much of that was in the writing, and of this deluded sense of him thinking that she's gonna, actually proven right, that she's gonna come back to him. But it was new, I guess. It was sort of moving forward with the character and putting it into a new situation and position. So that was trickier.
Question from Camden and Felina. This is for you, Freddie, and that is, before being cast as Norman, had you seen Psycho, the movie? Was it intimidating taking on the role of Norman Bates?
Yes, no, I had seen Psycho and the funny remake of Psycho too.
Oh, wow, yes.
It was just a really interesting, bizarre exercise, isn't it? Like redoing the whole thing, except he masturbates in one scene instead of... it's just kind of weird, isn't it? But fair play, well done. And I guess there was a certain pressure, but by having it in the contemporary setting, I think there was a freedom to move past or not needing to stick rigidly to what was there before. And, being inspired by Anthony Perkins' amazing performance, but not feeling like you have to mimic it and become, by the end, the exact embodiment of of him, because that would never really work. You know, you have to do it in your own, under your own terms. Yeah.
Vera, what was your familiarity, both of you guys, with the film? And did you take anything from it? Of course, Mama's dead in the film. You could do whatever you want with her now.
Yeah, I could. I didn't feel there was anything I could take necessarily from that. No.
I was a different kind of sheriff, I think, in the film. But I love what Carrie and Carlton have done with, obviously taking great liberty and reimagining the whole thing, and really just taking this dynamic and then adding a brother to the mix, but still tipping their hat off to Hitchcock. Even just the death of Norma in the film, the backstory is that he poisons his mother and her lover. But technically, I guess he would consider himself her lover. So in a sense, they're sort of tipping their hat all the time.
I think that will be fun next season. I'm always so wary of talking about things in the future, unless I've heard either Carlton or Kerry say something, in which case I feel like I can repeat it. And they've made reference to the fact that there might be this, that the events of Psycho might come at some point in season 5, and that there'll be a, sort of reinterpretation of that mythology, which will be exciting.
Hitchcock was once asked what is his formula for mystery writing, and his answer was so great because it applies in a bizarre way to this whole series. His answer was, always give the audience knowledge that the actors don't have. So in other words, you're watching a horror movie and you're going, don't go in the attic, no, oh my God, just don't do it. And so he said, that is more important, to empower the audience with something that they don't know. And the whole idea of this series is that we know where it's going to end. We have that foreknowledge. And so here you are, we have actors struggling to get there, and it adds that extra wonderful dynamic that he considered the hallmark of his writing. Anyway, my aside. Let's go to Stephanie Walters, who says, how hard is it for you guys to disconnect from your characters during your time off? Because, come on, you have these really psychologically intense characters.
I really don't find, everyone thinks I must go mad, but I don't really go mad, do I? I'm kind of, I don't think so anyway.
Okay.
I kind of...
Maybe you're just like that all the time.
Yeah, or you use it as there's something cathartic in, as I'm sure, I hope you would agree, in like the scene, like in real life when you have a good cry, you sort of feel a bit better afterwards. Not that acting should be a form of therapy, but that there is something, you get out, I don't have a tendency to kill people in my real life, but maybe if I weren't playing Norman, then suddenly I'd be like, oh, I've got to take this out on someone. But there is, like, by having a shout and a cry on set, you kind of go home feeling a bit more relieved at times, as opposed to feeling this, like, pent-up energy. Okay. Except when this one's still around, and then the rivalry continues.
My immune system gets compromised. Every single year at the end of it, I get sick. I get the flu, full-blown, yeah. It manifests physically, yeah.
You're getting a flu shot this year, aren't you?
They don't work on me.
Come on.
Nestor wants, this is a question for Nestor. Your relationship with Vera's character has changed over the seasons. How has it been playing that range of emotions?
It's been amazing, and it's rare. We were talking about this before we came up. It's rare on a show that you have a sense of where a relationship is going to go necessarily. And Carlton did, when he asked me to join the show, he said, listen, something will happen at the end of episode, at the end of season 1, that will launch your relationship with Norma in a different way. We were sort of at odds for a whole season, and he said it will be a lot of sort of 1 step forward, 2 steps back from there on. And so that dance, that tango that we've had for several seasons, we knew was going to finally sort of boil up and actually be consummated. But we didn't know how. But I love what the writers did this season in that they sort of, it was always tiptoeing. It was always, well, let's do a marriage of convenience just to physically be together. And then we'll consummate it physically through passion, and then eventually we'll declare our love. So it was always a bit backwards.
Alex always knew when she proposes to you that you always knew she was in love with you and that you were in love with her, and that it was going to go there. At what point in your storyline throughout all these 4 seasons does Alex fall in love with Norma?
I think when he goes to their house and she doesn't let him in, when he asks her about Keith Summers. I think when in the first season, I think he's already smitten. He feels like he's met his match, and this is a woman who's come here with her son, taken over a motel, and clearly doesn't jive with the town. And he's like, "This is my girl," even though his deputy got there first.
Vera, what's your perspective from Norma's side of the relationship with Alex? When you proposed to him, is she in love with him?
No, she's had she hasn't had the best experience with men in her life. And so I don't think it's until, there is an undeniable attraction repulsion, an undeniable magnetism, even from season 1. I think they're always, but I don't think it's until the proposal. I mean the wedding ceremony, where you show up with a ring. That's the nicest thing that you could have done. Just men aren't nice to her in that way. I think it took a long time. I don't think that.
No, I think it did, but I don't. You think it was that? I thought it was even later for you, maybe.
Even later, yes. The falling in love moment is, I think, for me when he hears my story. And he says, so I said, go on, go tell me to pack your bags. And he says, where are we going? Mm-hmm. I think it's that moment.
Vera, right now you are in another acting vehicle in theaters across America called The Conjuring 2. And Freddie... Freddie mentioned it yesterday, and I was asking him, because we were at a party yesterday, and he said... we
were just hanging out all day.
Actually, we did an interview, too, so we had a lot of time to talk.
We sat in here alone, just going, going through all the, testing the jokes.
We rehearsed all these topics before. So my question to him was, is Bates Motel really a horror story? And he said, no, it's not like Vera right now. She's in a horror story. The Conjuring 2 is in theaters. That's a horror story. Bates Motel is
wasn't that aggressive about it, or critical. I think it's brilliant.
About the point, right?
No, but there is I think when you see because I saw and Nestor as well, we went along to see The Conjuring 2, and it's brilliant, and it's a brilliant horror film. But when people describe Bates Motel as a horror film, I don't think it is. It's not.
It's so horrifying events happening to real people. I mean,
it's a psychological thriller. But I think The Conjuring 2,
family drama.
I think The Conjuring gets into that world too, more of a psychological thriller. Even obviously it has horror elements, but it's not your typical genre. It's a really smart film. It's a really great film, not just a genre piece.
Yeah, and you dig out we think you're amazing, Mother.
I love when he calls me Mother.
It just sneaks out sometimes. It's like, oh dear, whoopsie. Yes. So I guess it does stick with me a little bit, sometimes.
Okay, here's our last question. Take us behind the cameras. What is it like on set? Are one of you a practical?
We get along very badly. We're never joking.
What are some stories of I don't know, a hurricane goes through town, the set falls down, something that was a real challenge as actors that you suddenly had to face that when it went off script?
Off script. Doesn't necessarily go. The script is so precise. The right is so precise. So I think nothing. I think between us, it can get sometimes we've drawn closer and closer and closer. You can't have a lukewarm attitude. When you're playing these roles, you're either going to love each other or you're going to hate each other. And I think with every year we just draw nearer and dearer to each other. He's a part of my family, and then we can push each other and we know each other's buttons, and so. Sometimes, especially in the last 2 seasons, I feel sometimes when it gets super contentious, he knows how to get under my skin.
What does he do?
In between.
Or say?
Well, first of all, he'll drink 10,000 Coca-Colas, and it revs him up. And he just that frequency for me, the caffeinated frequency for me is a lot to bear. And he will pace in front of me, but then it's just little remarks. I've blocked them all. It's just little.
I think it's nice when you get to know someone so well that you feel the freedom to as you say, but push each other's buttons, and to feel like the rivalry with Romero too this year, that it can sort of extend in a jokey way off off camera too, because it helps the scene, and it also, underneath it all, you know that you have such a strong real relationship that you're not messing anything up. It gives you a freedom to really commit to those scenes when you're in conflict with one another without fearing what the other person's thinking, or without fearing that they're judging you or misunderstanding you. Or
Very true. I think your points, both your points are great. The level of trust that we have is because we're really good friends, and add to that the writing that we're so lucky to get to work with, you know, and the crew. I mean, hands down, this is the best job I've ever had. I mean, I consider myself extremely lucky on every level. But yes, that trust that allows us to go to sort of darker places also allows us to take chances, and even when we physicalize it, you know, in fight scenes, we know we're going to get hurt. Someone's going to get hurt because we're going to go for it, even though we plan it and we try not to. So he's not here to tell the story, but I know Max in season 3, when Norma leaves in episode 6, you become Norma. You've got the robe on and that kitchen scene, and you start going nuts. I think when he challenges you and you start throwing plates at him.
oh, yeah, I did throw.
So you were there. Why don't you tell the story? Because I saw it in the editing room.
That I was throwing the plates.
You were throwing plates at him, and Max was there. You know,
Yeah,
sort
well,
of
you've got to
dodging.
make him really
Yeah,
duck.
character.
You know,
Right.
there's not much point like throwing it half-heartedly. He's got to get out of the way. I mean, well, I mean, you know, they weren't real plates. It wasn't like I was really going to somehow decapitate the guy. But you do, you know, it's like a fun little, like, see if you can get out of this one. Yeah.
Oh, the challenges of an actor. On that note, thank you all for coming. You're all award voters. This deserves lots of them. Keep it in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.